Good afternoon. I'm Daniel Miller, and this is the Gaming Dialogue Podcast. A warm welcome to all of our friends, fans, community members, participants, and everyone watching us on a variety of different platforms. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being our very supportive community members. Thank you for being here with us today. We already had one session earlier today, and it was dedicated to the news. So hopefully you find some of the words to be of interest, and some of the recommendations, and particularly the games I talked about that were featured yesterday in the ID at Xbox presentation done through the IGN. I found lots of titles of interest. So if you are still wondering what this ID is for, what it means, it stands for independence. It's the independent studios under the umbrella of Xbox, and they present every year several times a variety of different titles that are expected to be released shortly. And I have to say there are several that really grabbed my attention. So all of that has been talked about in my gaming news earlier today, and this podcast will be dedicated to Destiny, and that's Destiny 1, and we'll be really considering how the game was initiated and made right from the beginning. So that is something that everybody wanted to see and hear for some time, and I'm personally very, very curious to see whether you guys from my community will find some of the thoughts and some of the words of interest. Also, there is this article which I had created a little while back, and that tells you all about the history of Destiny. It's called Destiny Bungie's Masterpiece. So anyone who's interested can just literally step in and have a look here. We have this article there, and that's called Destiny. Anybody who's interested can just step in, have a look, and read the article. You'll get that's the link, and all of that is going to be instantly accessible to you. So yeah, how's everybody doing today? How are you? I mentioned earlier that today we are having a very, very good day here in the London suburbs. It is warm, significantly warmer compared to the last couple of weeks, and we're enjoying the weather and the warmth and a bit of sunshine, and I had a very good day. It's just been, like yesterday, quite busy with all these technical things I need to be considering when doing podcasts, and it will take me a while to get used to, and it's just one of those things, but the preparations were providing us with very, very good results. So I want to thank our friend Playmo UK for contacting me yesterday, and after he watched, I think, some of our streams on VOD, either playback through YouTube or Twitch, and he said how grateful he was for the channel to be again up and running, and he kind of missed our discussions and chats and presentations. So I was very humbled and very glad to hear from our dedicated community member that indeed he was exploring the content already yesterday after I came back for the first time, and thank you very much for that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you here both live online on my podcasts, as well as through my gaming sessions, which we are going to be doing, of course, here with a variety of different games, and most importantly with Destiny 1 and 2, which is what we've been doing already for quite a few years. So coming back to what we'll do here today, it is going to be all about Destiny, but I need to just enable the chat to be able to see if anybody is asking us any questions. For whatever reason, the chat here disappeared, and I do apologize, but it's one of those things with the tech. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and it's just something that you need to get used to. So let me see. Yeah, that's the one we want to see, and we've got that. Yep. So right, I need to find where to put this. Okay. So today is a big day, and we are expecting in about an hour to have the new section of Destiny launched called Pantheon. And I'm very, very excited and very curious to see how this would work. I talked at length yesterday about the contents that were being described by its creators, people at Bungie, and it seems like there are quite a few novelties, quite a few different inclusions that will make the gameplay more interesting for everyone and easier for the newbies to join forces with the veterans. So I'm quite curious to see how that is going to work in practice. And we are at the moment, so that is at 1700 hours here in the UK, waiting for the maintenance and for the reset to be completed, and then we can crack on with the activity. I don't think I'll be able to try any of that today, but certainly tomorrow we'll dedicate a sizable amount of time on my live stream to that new section of our beloved masterpiece creation of Bungie's, and we are going to be then bringing in some friends in order to do some live online gaming together with us. And so that's really the big thing taking place today, and they're reworking, as they said, the whole system of gameplay inclusive of so-called team power, so that you'll be getting different types of rewards through one person who will be given the allocation of the team leader, and his power levels will be affecting the rest of the team, etc, etc. We talked about it yesterday, so I don't need to go into that today. I think in view of some of the requests and some of the things I've been asked already a little while back, I decided to run this session entirely dedicated to the way Destiny was made. I think it's important to have a session dedicated to the creation of this wonderful game, because we are now approaching its final section, the last chapter of the saga called you see, I just keep getting blank sometimes. I don't know, it's tiredness or what. And we are going to be getting the new DLC, and that will be released on the 4th of June. So I'm very excited about the DLC and its content. And I'm just wondering, just like I said yesterday, about the future. You know, how is this going to be coming our way as the saga ends? And certainly this section of the Legends will be coming to the conclusion after we defeat the Witness. The Witness being one of the biggest mortal enemies of humankind, and anyone who played Destiny for some time will be able to tell you that the Witness is definitely out there to be defeated. So, you know, let's wait and see what methods Bungie are going to be giving us in order to get rid of that beast. And what we do know is that the seasonal content, which we had been receiving from the year 2, is going to be no more. And I think generally the feeling is we are going to be having a new structure through which we'll get extra niceties in a format of episodes. So episodes will be arriving to us every single month, and I'm not exactly sure how they will work and what content will be provided, but you know, in the descriptions I've given yesterday, there was some indication that there are going to be elements such as artifacts or the goodies that you'll be able to carry on from season to season. I mean, it's from episode to episode, and I guess at the end of the day we all need to sit down and wait and then patiently explore the novelties when they're offered to us in June. So yeah, going back to the very beginning, to the roots of how Destiny was made, and I have written this article and I posted it here on the chat, and anybody who wants to explore the history of this game is going to get a very good introduction. And on the other hand, there are also some lovely illustrations there, some rare concept art and various other things. Reads like a book, really. It's a fairly lengthy article. It's like a booklet or a pocket size publication that you can indeed carry with you wherever you are and learn about bits and pieces linked to the creation of this wonderful game. So first of all, we have to go back in time, and Destiny has been around already for about 11 years, and initially it grew out of the successes that Bungie had with Halo. And when I saw in those months some of the concept art and some of the designs and illustrations, I thought that Destiny was going to be an extension of that Halo franchise, and I thought it was going to be quite similar in the way we kind of get to the game and the way we sort of fight the monsters and get the weapons and similar type of armor. But I was indeed to be proven wrong. the whole concept was significantly different, and they developed this online first-person shooter video game, released it worldwide on December the 9th of 2014, well, it's September 9, 2014. I actually got the dates wrong then. I thought it was in 2013, and so it's 10 years rather than 11 years of Destiny. I apologize for that, but I don't know why I thought it was 2013. Anyway, it was released on PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, Xbox One consoles, the next-gen consoles, obviously at a later date. And initially, Destiny marked Bungie's first new console franchise since they created the Halo series, offered exclusively on Xbox, and at the time also exclusively accessible on Xbox. And it was the first game for them in about a 10-year agreement between Bungie and Activision. Activision are no longer involved, as you know, but there have been lots of problems between the developer and the publisher, and I'm actually quite glad to see that they're no longer in that form of partnership. And the biggest problems were experienced at the launch of Destiny 2, where many people felt Destiny 2 was not delivering. And ever since they changed direction and everything sort of was progressing towards the brighter side, where we were getting a different type of content, and Bungie managed to retain a certain degree of independence, albeit in partnership with other big corporations like Microsoft, for instance. So this game, this fable, had been set in a mythological science fiction world, and it sort of features a multiplayer shared world environment which is combining the elements of various role-playing games. So there's a bit of RPG element with storytelling through NPCs, and particularly through the Ghost in Destiny 1, and then there is a lot of joint online activity with other community members. So for instance, if you're doing PvE, you're joining forces for strikes, or you invite people to join you when you're doing campaign sessions, or automatically you are being slotted in with others for the Crucible, which is the section dedicated to person against person, or player versus player, as they call it. And activities in Destiny are divided between those two, and in addition to the normal story missions, PvE, which is basically player versus environment, features 3-player strikes, and then the pinnacle activity, which is still most popular even today amongst everyone who's a Destiny veteran, in 6-player raids. So a free roam patrol mode was also available for each destination, and that was featuring public events that at times were very popular, as they would give sometimes very good quality loot. PvP features had some objectives, and the modes which you would be engaging are basically very similar to what you'd have in other games, as in form of deathmatch. So deathmatch is part and parcel of the Crucible. And right at the beginning, when you start the game, you kind of become alive in the Cosmodrome, and you take on the role of a guardian. And you know who's actually the guardian? These are the protectors of Earth's last safe city, as they wield a power called light, and that is to protect the city from different alien races. And all of those alien races in Destiny 1 are unfriendly. They definitely are causing trouble to everyone, and we need to take a stand and then defend humanity against all those evil creatures coming from everywhere. Guardians are tasked with reviving a celestial being, which is called the Traveler, while journeying to different planets to investigate and destroy the alien threat before humanity is completely eradicated. So it's a lengthy battle, and there are lots of things to be done and polished in the first game, and that basically was the meaning of the game in a nutshell. You know, the narrative literally summarized in a few sentences. But they also released, after the initial section, 4 expansion packs, and by doing so they were furthering the story, they were adding some new content, they improved on PvP sections and modes. And then year 1 of Destiny did feature 2 small expansions. The Dark Below, which was released in December 2014, and then House of Wolves in May of 2015. So these 2 were received warmly, but nobody was overwhelmingly sort of happy and positive. But then when a third larger expansion, The Taken King, was released in September 2015, well, that really marked the beginning of year 2, and it was sort of fairly revolutionary for what was seen up to that point. It changed much of the core gameplay and reworked some of the sections and gave a lot more to the players than what they experienced before. And at that point, when The Taken King was released, this game became a true masterpiece, and it had been loved and embraced by everyone ever since. So the base game and the first 3 expansions were packed into Destiny The Taken King Legendary Edition, and I actually have that edition played consistently, and it's the best edition that you can be getting today if you are still wondering whether to join our community, and you can get it on any platform. It basically has the entire content. You purchase it and then you can enter anything at any time and bring in your friends and community members to join you. The base game and the first 3 expansions were packaged into Destiny The Taken King Legendary Edition, which is another one, but I definitely don't recommend you that one. Buy the one that is called The Collection. And another large expansion called Rise of Iron was released in September 2016, and all of that and all the expansions have been released as Destiny, the collection that has literally everything, and that is what you need to be buying and playing. I just made a slight error when I made the comment about the Legendary Edition. I did have, and I still do have, a physical copy, but I kind of migrated to Destiny, the collection, digitally, and then was able to acquire the entire content. And obviously you can bring in anyone at any time to join you. So the game was originally published by Activision, although Bungie now self-publishes the game after separating from the corporation in 2019. So already 5 years ago, prior to the days of the pandemic. And I remember when this was underway, as Bungie talked about merging with Microsoft and doing lots of things with Game Pass, and then eventually none of that materialized, although they did stay with the Game Pass for 1 year, and with the expansion Beyond Light in Destiny 2. So upon its release, Destiny received generally positive reviews, and there was a lot of praise for its gameplay, graphics, and also for maintaining lineage from the Halo franchise, lineage I should say. So sorry about that, it's a different pronunciation of the word. And particularly in regard to its competitive experiences. Criticism was centered mostly around the game's storyline, which I guess still today comes across as reasonably weak, post-campaign content, and emphasis on grinding. Well, the last bit is certainly very present in Destiny of today as well. But at the same time, although people complain about the grinds, this is one of the most popular aspects of the title. Because if you are doing some lengthy grinds, you are also getting some very, very good, very meaningful rewards. And certainly for a person who's not doing Destiny every single day, doing those lengthy grinds will provide you with a lot of entertaining activity and a lot to do with your mates, you know, when you kind of rope them in to do things for you in order to get an exotic quest, like an exotic piece of armor, weapon, or anything else. And so really, when we look at the overall reception, we could see how, for instance, initially it sold over $325 million at retail in its first 5 days, which is a phenomenal success. And that really made it the biggest new franchise launch of all times in 2014. And it's often called as a pioneer of the game, which is entirely based on the live service. So it's a live service genre game. And I think that's quite correct. There have been other games emerging both prior to the release of Destiny and in the years to follow, but Destiny kind of solidified or paved the way for that type of genre or that type of structure to be given to the gaming community and for people to understand it in full. And as such, it was quite revolutionary in its heyday. And it was also winning lots of different awards in the course of the following couple of years. It won Games Radar's 2014 Game of the Year award, I should say, and then it also was given BAFTA Award for the Best Game 2014, British Academy Video Games Awards, and then a sequel, Destiny 2, was released in September of 2017, so that was 3 years later. And I remember the day actually when I received the sequel. And going back to the original game, because the sequel is significantly different. It offers you a multitude of different activities. You have quite a variety of different quests to which you are getting both weapons and armor, and there are lots of very challenging sections, I guess similar to what you had in Destiny 1, that are being run on a kind of continuous basis. You don't have to be doing them just a one-off in order to get your Sleeper Simulant or Dark Drinker, but you can always step in with your friends. They were really seen as the addition to the raids, so there are more challenges accessible to everyone. So that was the thinking behind it. But I have to say, coming back to Destiny 1, although in the description I've given you some of the criticism, I think the biggest attraction for many people who are still with that game even today was the difficulty that was present within the actual Destiny structure, giving you the opportunity to grind heavily in order to get the best pinnacle weapons, which then you can use in order to complete other activities. And there are several in the game, and we'll obviously revisit them as we carry on here with our description and the history of how the game was made. So, coming back to the description, they considered this game to be a first-person shooter that incorporated role-playing and massive multiplayer online elements. But just generally, I think Bungie were quite skeptical about MMO labeling, as they would be coming into category of some other games, and they said that they kind of referred it to as a shared world shooter, which probably is the very best description. It does lack many of the characteristics of a traditional massive multiplayer online game. So for instance, rather than being able to see that players can communicate with all other players in the game, like for instance Elder Scrolls, or on a particular server, as obviously frequently is the case with conventional massive multiplayer online games, Destiny includes on-the-fly matchmaking that will be giving you the opportunity to communicate only with other players with whom you are matched by the game. So that is when you're doing the strikes, or when you are doing the Crucible, or when you are generally bringing people in to be fully part of your team, and then you can communicate to them directly. And to communicate with other people in the game world, players must use their respective console's messaging system, or you can bring them into your party if you're on console, so Discord, I guess. And it's not really facilitated directly through the game. The game has got that degree of restriction. And then time-limited events and modes are also occasionally added or featured in the game. And activities in Destiny have been divided between those two game modes, and that's PvE versus PvP. And that is across the Cosmodrome and the Plaguelands, and that was also added with Rise of Iron on Earth, the Moon, Venus and Mars. The Iron Banner is another PvP event that allows Guardians to get high tier loot from playing repetitively these competitive multiplayer matches, and these ones are available during exclusive windows, off time and completing bounties. And that's been carried forward to the sequel as well. Presently we have the Iron Banner in motion, the last one before the last shape, and everybody will be stepping in to do a bit of it, a bit of grinding. And also there are some PvP maps for Mars, Moon and Phobos and the planet Mercury. A social space on Mercury was added with the House of Wolves expansion, but will require players to go undefeated in the Trials of Osiris Crucible mode in order to access it. So that's been one of the greatest challenges, because Trials of Osiris was for quite a while the most popular activity in the original game. And that would be your reward then once you completed it undefeated. And then there was another PvE area, a massive ship called the Dreadnought. We played so many matches in the Dreadnought and campaigns over the years. That is situated in the Rings of Saturn, and the 2 PvE missions on Phobos were also added during the Taken King expansion. Anyone who's been with us for a while will recognize that we played many of those missions consistently on my live streams. So what I really liked when the game was released was the way you created your character, how you progressed, and what classes you were able to entertain. So that was one of the greatest, the biggest advantages of being in Destiny 1 as a newbie player. And I have to say, coming back to various veterans here that told me it would have taken them anything between 18 to 24 months before they really mastered the game, doing the game step by step. And I think initially lots of people didn't have the multiplayer access on consoles. They were playing the game by themselves, and the game has been created in order to bring in community members and different types of elements of the gameplay are specifically designed to be played in a group, and therefore it was more difficult for them to complete. And some parts of the game were even inexplicable. You couldn't find a solution unless you're being held by someone else, and that is what I liked about the game the best, and that really brought in some of the very best experiences of gaming to my life, which I experienced live on my channel with our dedicated community members who were really so kind and so attentive to myself personally, and spent so much time trying to polish up some skills of mine and train me to do certain things and guide me towards the quest to which I would get weapons like Sleeper Simulant and Dark Drinker. And I was, I'm still eternally grateful to everyone who participated. So coming back to the character progression and classes, we all can improve their characters, and they're obviously called Guardians, and you do that, you enhance their abilities by gaining experience points, or XPs. And when a set number of experience points are accumulated, the player's character will level up and then gain improved statistics, which will further enhance performance in battle. So quests, which will include the main scenario quest line, are specific tasks given to the player by NPCs or non-player characters, and those ones will reward items and XPs. So the idea is you will be getting the rewards from these non-player characters. Completing main scenario quest progresses the overall. Completing main scenario will be giving you the overall completion of the main campaign. So it's very important that you engage with those tasks and progress forward step by step. Destiny features 3 character classes. Each class has their own specific updates and upgrades, as well as perks, special abilities, and there are 3 subclasses that will be giving the player ability to finely tune their individual characteristics and also to provide a different play style. It's very important because when you choose Hunter to be the main character, or indeed Warlock, you will be given special abilities. And when you do some activities within a team, when a group of players join forces, then it's very important to consider what is going to be done by what member at what time. And having a team of 3 separate guardians, i.e. 3 separate characters, will definitely help your activity to be as enjoyable and as progressive as possible, and you will be able to then defeat some of the bosses and move forward within the main campaign, as well as successfully complete some of the exotic quests. So after you choose a class, you'll be selecting one of the 3 species for the character. So it could be human, could be awoken, which are like grey-skinned descendants of humans, or you can be an exo, and that is basically a machine, a robot that has got human consciousness within it. And they can then be customizing the character. You can be changing gender or skin color, and character species is only cosmetic and does not really affect the gameplay. So you can really toy in Destiny 1 with the way you look, and that's not going to be having any major impact on whatever you do in the game. And players also can create 2 more characters to have a character of each class. So like I said, it could be Warlock, could be Hunter, could be Titan, and they will have different abilities, and the super will work differently. The Taken King added a third subclass for each class, and that will be requiring the purchase of the DLC in order to access everything. But as I said, if you were to be buying the game today, or you want to upgrade, definitely go for Destiny the Collection. That gives you straightforwardly the access to everything. So we have Hunters, Warlocks and Titans, and I'll give you a bit of a rundown on every one of the characters and what each one will be doing in the game. So Hunters are based on a bounty hunter, somebody who's running around and chasing the villains, and also will be focusing on agility and mobility. So these are two factors which are important when you are doing the game, you're playing the character. You must pay attention to those two abilities and the way they are being accelerated or indeed enabled for the character to be as powerful as possible. And that is even more so present in the sequel. You will see in the sequel you have mods that will be slotted into armor, and they'll be getting not just a special ability, but also they will be increasing mobility, agility, discipline, etc. That will help them with certain types of functions. So Hunter will have a solo-based gunslinger subclass, and that will be including stat boosts that will be awarding accurate play. So have a throwing knife attack, then the ability to upgrade to a triple jump, and then you will have a very useful golden gun super that you can use on the bosses, which is powerful and it's like a flaming magnum with a base magazine of 3 slots. So when you are coming to the end of a boss fight and the boss needs to be finished off, you can be using Gunslinger successfully with those 3 shots, and obviously that will cause the boss's demise, and it'll be really very fast, almost instant. The arc-based Blade Dancer subclass has a heavier focus on close combat, and it's offering also an extended range Blink Strike and also an Arc Blade super, which will give you the ability to quickly dart between and then kill enemies. And then also you have one option which will give you temporary invisibility, and that's very useful if you're in close combat, if you want to avoid certain enemies. If you're doing nightfall strikes, for instance, that invisibility is very useful. The Taken King added a void-based Night Stalker subclass, and that had included a bow-like super called Shadow Shot, which will be tethering enemies together, limiting movement, and then preventing enemies from using abilities for a short time. I actually like that ability the best, and I use it all the time in Destiny 1. It's very, very good for any form of orchestrated joint teamwork. You're enabling your teammates to be chasing scores, to be able to eliminate certain enemies, and you do that by the use of the tether. And I have also the ability through which I can do it several times at once, so they call it spamming the tether, like 3 times at once, and that is very, very effective when doing the nightfall strikes or doing any of the pinnacle activities. So you have, in addition to that, the Warlocks, another character, and Warlocks are based on a space magician, and they're also focusing on offensive abilities. Actually, when I joined Destiny community, I played Warlock all the time, and then later I regretted that, because I think Hunter is definitely, for myself, the preferable character, but many people resort to Titans. I think Warlocks are the least popular amongst all 3 of them. And so the Warlocks will have focus on offensive abilities, on recovery, and melee attacks, and those can be reducing the cooldown time of its abilities. So its super is in so-called Voidwalker subclass. Then you have Nova Bomb, which is an explosively powerful sphere of void energy capable of being thrown into different ways. Its Sunsinger subclass features abilities based around the solar element, and then you have Radiant super, allowing the player to temporarily improve their statistics or revive themselves if killed. So the Taken King added the Arc-based Stormcaller subclass that included the super Storm Trance, which also produces lightning bolts that change between enemies. I've used all of them at different times, and generally they have been very, very effective. I think if you're looking at the abilities and subclasses, you need to consider what you do together with your team and what types of abilities he will be using in order to eliminate enemies or to support what other team members are doing. And therefore Destiny had really mastered the whole concept. I've not seen that in other games, particularly at the time, where such supers or special abilities would have such great impact on the actual gameplay, particularly on the gameplay of a crew, of a team. So then we have the third character, and he's called a Titan. So they're based on a space gladiator or tanks and focus on heavy damage and tough resistance. The Titan super in the arc-based striker subclass, Fist of Havoc, it's very powerful, is a ground slamming attack that destroys all enemies in its radius. And I can tell you, one of our community members, Sekupupu from Finland, he always loves that power, and he always uses Fist of Havoc whenever possible in certain activities. Its void-based defender subclass offers the ability to generate a shield with its Ward of Dawn super. So the shield can also provide temporary stat bonuses to other players that step in within the range. And the Taken King also added the Sunbreaker subclass, and that is featuring a solo-based super which is called Hammer of Soul. And that super creates a flaming hammer that can be thrown at enemies, or indeed could be used for close quarter combat. So you have three different characters, and depending on your personal preference, you'll resort to one of them at any given time. And upon reaching the character level cap, you will be getting the progression, which is going to be shifting to improving the light level by acquiring new and better equipment, which is essential in Destiny. Better equipment and the increase of the light level will just give you better abilities. This equipment can be gained through a variety of sources, and that will be including strikes, raids, and in-game events. Prior to the Taken King, all legendary and exotic armor and some rare contained an attribute called Light. So once players reach level 20, they were no longer earning experience to level up, and XPs earned after level 20 would go towards upgrading weapons and armor, and then creating motes of light, which is in fact like some sort of in-game currency. And at that time, players could only go beyond level 20 by obtaining armor with light, and these levels were referred to as light levels. So the initial light level cap was 30, which later got increased to 32 with the Dark Below, and then 34 with the House of Wolves. And then the update patch 2.0, after being released in preparation for the Taken King, made the character's experience level and light level separate. So level 34 is now the experience level cap for all players. Level 40 is for those guys who own the Taken King and Rise of Iron. A higher character level allows for better equipment to be equipped and the better loot to be collected, as we've seen in many of those sessions live online. A character's light level is now an average of the attack and defense of all of that equipped gear, so it's a combination of the two. For example, if your equipped gear has 170 light each, the character's light level will be 170. A higher light level will be improving damage output and the character's defense. So the highest obtainable light level was 320 for players who were the owners of the Taken King, and then the expansion's April update increased it to 335, and Rise of Iron increased the highest obtainable level to 400. So once you come to 400, there's no way up. That is the cap. That is when the levels just simply end. My characters are all 4400, and it did take me quite a bit of time to get on my Warlock to the highest levels on the both, I have to admit, and I can just thank my community members and their dedication and full participation here live online with me in many sessions of Destiny, which enabled me to get to 4400. But after talking to some of the other veterans, Vintage Sniper King, our dedicated community member from the US, I realized that it was taking them a lot longer because they played initially the game by themselves without any assistance, and indeed, as the game was progressing with the DLCs, certain directions were changing, and therefore certain levels were harder to get. So, As we carry on, we learn that players' equipment includes weapons and armor. So it's two different things which you are collecting throughout the game and improving as you go along. Legendary and exotic items are the best items for all players' characters, and only one exotic weapon and one exotic armor, and that would be excluding exotic class items, can be equipped at any given moment in time, which makes it slightly tricky because we all would like to have 2 or 3 pieces of exotic armor or weaponry that will give us this incredible power to destroy everyone that is ahead of us. But that is not to be in the Destiny 1 game. You can just have one of those, one exotic weapon and one exotic armor. Legendaries you can have as many as you like, but the exotics will be just one apiece. And there are several different classes of weapons that are categorized as either primary, so that's usually your hand cannon or your a variety of different weapons, and that will be excluding primary. They have special weapon, which is secondary or heavy weapons. It's either primary, special, or heavy. So special is secondary and heavy weapon is the third slot. And several weapons have an elemental damage type. So for instance, you have arc, blue color, solar, which is orange, and void, purple. And each one of those weapons will be marked, so you'll know exactly what ability or what type of elemental damage they will have. So all of those damage types will deplete enemy shields of that type much faster, and the weapon will also do extra damage to enemies if the gameplay modifiers arc burn, solar burn, or void burn are active. So the original maximum attack damage for legendary and exotic weapons was 300. And then they increased to 331 with the Dark Below and 365 with the House of Wolves. So as they change to the light level system, the Taken King numerically change weapons of 365 damage to 170, but with no loss in damage output. 365 damage of year 1, that would equal 170 damage of year 2. As with armor, weapons attack damage contributed to the light level, and all gear which could then be infused to increase the number. So one of the things I learned quite early was the process of infusing the weapons, i.e. the pieces which you do not need anymore, in order to elevate the power of the weapon that is currently equipped. And it's very important to learn. Lots of people who are new to the game would have not known this easily, and they'd be just grinding and collecting weapons elsewhere. But this is how I leveled up, and I was taught that by my community members. So there are 6 armor slots. You have helmet, you have gauntlets, chest, legs, class item, and artifact. Very different to the sequel. Artifacts were added with the Taken King, so each class will have armor specific to them, with exotic armor that will be complementing a character's subclass. So each piece of armor will be increasing your overall defense. Before the Taken King, class items were only cosmetic, such as for instance Hunter Cloak, and didn't have any stats or any defense boost. With the Taken King update, class items were given defense that contributed to players' light level. So for instance, players' Ghost Companion was also given defense with the Taken King update that was contributing to the light level. So, as we carried on with the DLCs, the game was becoming a bit more sophisticated, a bit more complex, and many people were enjoying it a lot more. So, for instance, player's Ghost Companion was also given defense with the Taken King update, and that was contributing to the light level. So in addition to earning gear from loot drops by playing various missions and other activities, all players could then purchase gear from faction vendors, and some of those vendors were giving a reasonable amount of goodies. So it was always important to engage with all of them at any given time when you had enough money or abilities to do so. And players can also pledge their allegiance to one of the 3 factions, and there are 3. So that's Dead Orbit, Future Cult, or New Monarchy. And earning enough reputation with a faction would be giving you the allowance to earn and purchase lots of different items that are basically owned by that faction. And I actually tried Dead Orbit and Future War Cult. I don't think I ever participated in New Monarchy Cult. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but I don't remember that. And generally, once you've done one of those cults, you kind of have a tendency to stick to the same one. Well, I have a tendency to do that, but we've seen other people doing all three of them at different times. And players also earn reputation with other vendors, and that is the vendors for Vanguard and Crucible, but doing playlists or bounties for that vendor, which will also have their own set of legendary items. So I know it's quite a lot to take on board, but that's the way the game had been built. You know, the system of progression in here was quite revolutionary, and many people thoroughly enjoyed the evolution from, I guess, reasonably sophisticated to very, very advanced that was coming the way with various DLCs. And still today, I have to say, I can see that our friend Matthias is here. Hello Matthias, how are you doing? Good to see you. Dark Haunting is Matthias's user ID. Matthias is one of our VIPs, somebody who played Destiny almost from day one, and Matthias helped me tremendously with many aspects of the game over the years, and had remained a dedicated community member as well as the tutor for many people who still want to learn bits and pieces in both of the games. And I'm very glad to see that Matthias is here with us today. So hello, and hope you're well. Hope everything is as good as it should be. And look forward to seeing you in some of our online gaming sessions, which presently are still being tested within my new setup, as you could see. And I think the new setup is a lot better than the one I had before. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but it's just a somewhat different structure here on the channel, doing pretty much the same thing, but just delivered in separate sections. Anyway, getting back to our player versus environment PvE, and what our three characters, Warlocks, Hunters, and Titans, would be doing if indeed they were fighting some enemies in that mode. So you have PvE, which really makes the majority of the game, and I find the vast majority of those activities to be thoroughly enjoyable. I did say many times, and Matthias and other friends will know, that I really consider the Crucible to be the weakest part of Destiny. It's a selection of very small deathmatch maps, and when you're eliminating all the opponents, and a lot of it is based on the skill and the speed. So you will need to develop a skill. Obviously, you need to have very good weapons and armor, and you have to be very, very fast. But then also kind of ties in with your internet speed. So if your internet speed's not particularly good and somebody's on super fast fiber, your results and your abilities in the Crucible could be seriously depleted and seriously affected. So I generally, compared to some other PvP games, I find the Crucible to be not that exciting for myself. But nevertheless, many people still play the game and enjoy the Crucible. Although in Destiny 1, it is quite difficult to get slotted into some of these matches with others. And I'm not sure whether the problem is with the servers, or the absence of players, or Bungie not investing enough in that section of the game, but it has been like an endless wait. You can just sit there and wait until you're being slotted. So I've not played any Crucible in Destiny 1 for quite some time, which was not the case during the early years, and the Crucible was attracting lots of competitive gamers who enjoy death matches and, you know, migrated from other games to this incredibly appealing environment. So basically, PvE story missions, and that's player versus environment. So that's not when you're playing with other people, against other people, I should say. PvE story missions can be played either solo or as part of a fire team of up to 3 players. So initially, there was an order to the story missions. They could be played in any order as more missions became available. For example, after completing Earth's second story mission, 3 more missions became available, and the rest of the missions did not have to be played in the same order. And the questing system introduced in House of Wolves, also refined in the Taken King, will be requiring story missions to be played in a strict order due to quest step progression. So they really toyed with the idea, and I think generally what was quite novel at the time was the ability to hop in and out as you pleased, and sort of random order of progression and random order for which you can engage with different missions. quite different to all other games I played up to that point, I have to say. And every day a random story mission will be featured as the daily heroic story mission, and you can always enter that and play it at any given time, and you'll get some extra bonus rewards. So each playable area will be also offering an open world and patrol mode, and every player can travel freely around the area and then perform small tasks gathered from beacons. Usually they're very easy to complete, and then you can collect materials that are used for upgrading weapons and armor. So that was very grindy in Destiny 1, and sometimes you had to really patrol for quite a bit in order to get materials that will be used for the upgrades. And some of it was very enjoyable, and I found some of the other ones to be fairly grindy and kind of creating me a bit of a headache. Not that keen on going back to patrols, I've got to admit, but in any case, if you have a joint activity with 2 or 3 members, you can always step in whilst they're doing or polishing off a particular task, and you can pick up any of the beacons and then get additional materials as you are helping others at the same time. So it's a sort of activity in Destiny 1 where patrols can be merged with campaigns or anything else that you're doing out there. So every player could travel around the areas on foot or with a vehicle, and the vehicles are very nicely designed. They're called Sparrows, and they're quite similar to the speeder bikes of Star Wars. I think they've taken them in from Star Wars right from the beginning, but in any case, in sci-fi games, there are all kinds of vehicles, and I really enjoy and love trying out different types of Sparrows in here with different speeds and different designs in particular when it comes to the sequel. And you also, when you travel around the wasteland, you are spotting public events, and they're not happening all the time in Destiny 1, so you need to wait for quite a while before they pop up. And then anyone, anywhere can basically step in and participate. So basically, the events will be location specific, and they will have a task which is basically eliminating either one or multiple targets. You'd have to defeat incoming waves of enemies, or frequently you will have to be defending a satellite which had crashed, and that's called Warsat, right? And we played lots of those strikes with the Warsat that had crashed, and some of them are devilishly difficult. So strikes are cooperative missions played with a party or 3 players. Like I said, this game's been designed to be played with others, and you are simply here to join forces with other community members in order to complete certain tasks. I played Destiny, I guess, in both ways, sometimes by myself and at many other times with others, particularly since I began broadcasting on Twitch and doing my live online sessions. And I've got to tell you that the overall experience of the game is completely different if you're doing it just by yourself. This is not a game to be played by yourself. This is not a single player game. All the activities and everything which is enjoyable here is to be done in a crew, either of 3 or 6. Sometimes maybe even a 2-piece if you are being slotted in randomly where they can't find a 3rd person to be in your fire team. But you've got to be doing it together with others. It's absolutely pivotal. You have completely different enjoyment of the game, and that's the case also with the sequel. Even more so as they introduced many activities that are group specific. And as we've seen and heard in relation to Pantheon, that will be launched tonight. Destiny is progressing more and more towards that style of gameplay where your crew and your team becomes even more essential and fundamental than ever before. And I'm very curious to see what Pantheon is going to be like, because it's an activity that will be carried forward from week to week, and you will be getting special loot and special abilities. I've gone through that yesterday. I didn't quite understand what we were to be expecting, but best way is going to be for us to jump in and simply try and experience the novelty, and that is a prelude to what will follow with the last shape, which is the last campaign of the final shape, I should say, the last section of the last DLC of the last expansion of the current saga. So that is basically a prelude together with Into the Light. Right, so we come from patrols and all these other activities to the activity called strikes, right? And these are cooperative missions, and they're played with a party of 3 players that will always culminate with the elimination of a major boss. And most strikes are basically side missions that are not part of the main plot, the campaign, and players can play a lot harder versions of the strikes in what is called Siva Crisis Strike, and initially was called Vanguard Heroic Playlist. Yesterday we played a few of those, and they're actually quite difficult, I have to admit. And the weekly Nightfall Strike, which is the most difficult thing per week for you to be completing with your community members. And that weekly Nightfall is still, together with raids, one of the most popular parts of Destiny 1. And every week we were doing a Nightfall Strike for a number of years. And that Nightfall Strike will be also giving you the best rewards. The loot that you're getting should be the best. While the Siva Crisis is a playlist of strikes from the Taken King and Rise of Iron, and some other older strikes which are updated with Taken and Siva infected enemies, the weekly Nightfall Strike is always going to be harder than one of the heroic ones. Is only one strike that will be changing every week with a chance for great rewards. So it means, for instance, if you have completed it successfully in good time and you picked up some really good rewards, well, that's going to be it for that week. You'll have to wait for another Tuesday to arise, because the same rewards will not be otherwise accessible if you do the repetitive Nightfalls. And generally, what we've done is, well, I've done actually many repetitive Nightfalls here, as some of our friends wanted to get the loot. But you did like once a week with your crew, and then you complete it and you're happy. On the other hand, you may just do the whole thing for the fun of it all. And you have like a daily heroic story mission. You have Siva Crisis Strike, and then a weekly Nightfall Strike, which will be featuring game modifiers. That is always going to be increasing the difficulty. So every week when you go to the Nightfall Strike, you need to double check what the mods are. And the mods can be causing you a lot of problems. They could really make it difficult where there's no radar, so you won't know where to go. Or they'll make some greater vulnerability for you in terms of what armor will be less able to sustain attacks, or anything else. So, and our friend Matthias says, plus the 10% XP bonus from completing for Nightfall each week. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've not really noted that here in the article. It is certainly very, very important and quite rewarding, because you're getting 10% extras of that for completing Nightfall each single week. So I think that's what we were doing every week here on the channel. We were trying to complete one per week with one crew. So, you know, sometimes I play maybe 6 or 7 or 10 of them with different participants, but always a good fun and always an activity that gives you a sense of completion and satisfaction. And then we have, for instance, with these modifiers, these ones can be positive or negative for anyone. And if, for instance, you have a positive modifier, which would be small arms, where damage for the primary weapon is doubled, but then the negative modifier would be chaff, and that is where the player's radar is disabled. And it still happens to me sometimes that when the chaff mod is applied, I lose my bearings and basically don't know where I'm going or can't find a way in. And I've, you know, done goodness how many times various missions, but it's always been disconcerting, because you're kind of dependent on the radar. So the best activity, the pinnacle activity, the most difficult one and still most popular here in Destiny 1, is an activity called a raid. And these are advanced cooperative missions designed to be played by a team of 6 players. I know that some of our friends sometimes wanted to complete them as a 3-piece or 4-piece, but this is an activity that's been designed to have 6 people on board. And our friend Matthias says something about chaff. Chaff can easily be overcome by pulling out your ghost to show you which direction you need to be going. So, as you could see, Matthias is advising us something very important. If you were to be just following the instructions that Bungie have given us, then perhaps you'll have a shot in the dark. But if you pull out the ghost, you'll still get a good idea where you need to be going, which is what I'm failing to do most of the times, and sometimes that's fun. And so if you go back to the raids, the only PvE game type that allows more than 3 players in a fire team is basically that one. So all other activities could be done by 1, 2 or 3 people, but this one will require a 6-piece. And I know we've done actually a few raids here with a couple of our friends as a 3-piece, I'm not really a massive big raider, and the reason for that is I had very, very poor quality internet until recently, and then that was seriously hampering the effort of the team. And I really never wanted to do activities in a group where I would be the weakest link and just, literally slowing down everyone or causing everyone major problems. And that was happening with some of the activities in Destiny due to maintenance speed. So I really tried to avoid some of those. That's no longer the case, and I obviously relish the participation in some of those activities, not just in Destiny but elsewhere in games like Warzone, Apex, or any other. And raids always culminate with the elimination of a major boss, and that boss is related to the story. So for instance, when you come to King's Fall, the major boss is absolutely connected to the campaign, and it's critical that you eliminate the boss with your team in order to get the very best loot. And the best weapons in Destiny 1 will be acquired from the raids, and so that that's very, very important. And with the release of Rise of Iron, the number of raids in Destiny 1 had been increased to 4. So those raids include the Vault of Glass, Crota's End, King's Fall, and the Wrath of the Machine. So some of these raids have been now migrated to the sequel, Destiny 2, and I've not actually gone in to try those. I wonder whether Matthias tried them with anyone from his community, and whether you find them to be as good, as easily playable compared to the old, or whether there is any difference, because obviously they'll be a bit more advanced visually and in terms of in-game mechanics, and it's next-gen graphics and everything. But I know still that lots of people are resorting to the old raids. In fact, I get still many messages on my PlayStation app from many of, well, sometimes not even my own community members, but Destiny veterans from elsewhere who refer to this channel, who want to be basically roping in a few people in order to do a raid. And I always direct them to other members who are more than ready and prepared to step in. Sekapupu is always one of those, and so if you are looking forward to play with somebody who is a raid expert, well, Matthias, Captain Jack, Sekapupu, and all of our friends here will be more than happy to join in and help. And then we have very important areas of the game which are called social spaces, right? And in Destiny 1, this is the Tower on Earth, and then there's the Vestian Outpost, which was added with House of Wolves. There you have Petra and Barracks, and then you have the Iron Temple, which was also added to the game with the Rise of Iron expansion. So you have 3 social spaces, and the activities there are pretty much similar. You will be talking to certain NPCs, you will be able to do your vault and to do your loot, and then in addition to that, you are going to be able to exchange and trade some of your weapons and armor, and all of that is going to be very, very useful both for yourself and your team. And also, very importantly, you have certain tasks which can be completed by the NPCs at that specific social space, and that is initially, I guess, a bit kind of misleading, disconcerting. So it takes a while for you to realize that actually certain tasks have got to be done at a tower alone, but then you have certain characters who will be able to do some of those things in other social spaces as well. And also, very importantly, after they introduced the app for Destiny 1, you were able to transfer weapons from the inventory to the vault and vice versa through the app without having the need to be traveling always to the tower. And that was one of those, chores that everyone had to be doing, as well as doing substantial admin. So anytime you have lots of items at your postmaster, you cannot be deleting them directly in the post box, but you've got to be putting them into inventory, and then you have to either put them in the vault or delete them by yourself. So it's a bit of a tricky, time-consuming activity that I do not really enjoy, and it is a serious chore for anyone who's a streamer, because sometimes you need, after doing nightfalls and raids, you need to be doing all this admin, and doing it live online is not particularly interesting to watch. So in the sequel, they streamlined this, and that itself is giving you the ability to delete directly so there's no sort of no delays really. And beyond armor and weapons, items that players can obtain can also include ships, and they can be representing themselves during travel cutscenes, shaders for customizing the color scheme of the armor, sometimes really looking very pretty, emblems, which are banners for players' names and some of the stats, and then emotes such as a dance, a gesture, and shells for the ghost companion. So all of that can be acquired in there. And I really like some of the emotes. I remember just going back to Matthias when he was displaying Michael Jackson dance and, you know, various kind of groovy moves that he was able to get through his emotes. And eventually I did get some of those as well. Emotes are really a fantastic section of the game. Well, it's a section of the game. It's a fantastic item in your inventory, which you can use in order to make new friendships and connections, particularly in the earlier days when not many people had headsets and they were not really talking live on air. Having a good emote at the tower was definitely helping you to make a new bond and to bring somebody in to become a member of your fire team, as well as very funky looking outfits, i.e. high quality loot or armor that you picked up and then applied to your gameplay. I always look around when I'm at the tower or any other social space in Destiny. I always look around to see who has got the best outfit, who looks the best, and I always want to talk to that person. I always want to bring them into my community. And I've got to say, I actually asked Matthias, have you seen many people doing cosplays, Destiny cosplays, and doing the streams? Maybe in the early years, there wasn't much of live streams on Twitch or YouTube the first 3 years, but I've not really seen many. You know, I come across people who are doing cosplays of different Japanese characters from Final Fantasy in particular, and then some of Apex is very popular for cosplayers. I don't know, Borderlands or Fortnite, the games that have lots of characters. But it's quite interesting. Destiny had not picked up on the cosplay front, and I'm not sure why. If you look at my Twitter, I have loads of cosplayers in there, loads of girls and boys who are very, very good in creating on costumes, and I go to conventions and, you know, Comic Cons and Twitch events, and I've not seen many of those people doing it live on air. I've seen streamers being really competitive and really top notch with their shooting skills and collection of weapons and all sorts, but not the same people to be dressed like Zavala or anyone else, you know. And Matthias says, I have not seen many of those, to be honest, and I think that's probably, there must be a reason for that. Maybe the costume's very difficult to make, or maybe it's not the kind of game that's attracting that kind of attention. I'm not sure. You know, Apex also a shooter and a battle royale game, so to speak, and loads of streamers were doing it dressed up like some of these characters. But I guess maybe it's to do with the characters and the way the games run, or I don't know, it's hard to tell. Still requires further exploration. So for all of you watching or listening, or people who'll be accessing this on playback, if you come across Destiny cosplayers, people who are doing it live on air, just ping us a message. Everyone in our community will be quite curious to hear, because that's for me like a true rarity in recent years, and it's surprising, isn't it, considering how big the community is and how many people still step in to play Destiny 2 and so on. I think this session on the creation of Destiny will be extended to maybe 2 or 3 parts, because there is a lot of information to get through, and everyone's going to have a headache because there are so many different facts and figures to be taken on board. And, you know, coming back to this, I talked a lot about Destiny and the difficulties with storytelling live on air in my broadcast, and I asked Kapupu and Matthias to explain to me who was doing what, and trying to disentangle the maze, really, in which I find myself in. Anyway, it's interesting that the sheer quantity of information which is linked to the creation of Destiny mirrors that as well. And I think if you look at Destiny 2, the sequel, the multitude of activities and the quantity of quests and the content that we've given over the years is just completely mind-boggling. It is impossible to digest in one go. But I still think, at the end of the day, Destiny 1 will be seen as a legendary game, as something which brought in a kind of different, a revolutionary type of approach to a video game title. Maybe it's no longer of that significance today, because we have seen other companies, for instance Bethesda with Fallout 76, trying to rebuild the same sort of environment, and with, I'd say, less success in some ways, particularly in the early days. I'm not gone in recently. I think there's been a major improvement, but we've seen Elder Scrolls Online, for instance, a very, very big open world that is highly active and interactive amongst the gamers and participants. And Destiny was, the one that really did start with that first, and they kind of triggered off that avalanche within the live server gaming. So really, definitely worth keeping in mind. So we talked a bit about PvE, player versus environment. So now we'll be considering what you do here in Destiny when you play player versus player, right? So in addition to the PvE challenges, PvP combat exists in what is called the Crucible, right? So the Crucible, which can have a maximum of 12 people, 12 players, depending on the game type, contains a small playlist of various PvP modes, and they will include Control, Clash, Rumble, and then Skirmish. So Control, I think, I like probably the best, and the Control is a 6 versus 6, where teams try to capture and maintain control of zones, but that's quite difficult as you're constantly under enemy fire. So you've got to be very fast and very skilled and have good armor and weapons, and try to survive. Anytime I go to the Crucible, particularly in Destiny 1, I get eliminated many times. But in recent months or years, I should say, and particularly now after I managed to get better internet speed, I was able to also cause a considerable number of eliminations in the opposing teams. But initially it was very frustrating. Clash is a classic 6 versus 6 team deathmatch, so you're playing against the others, you need to eliminate them one by one. And Rumble is a 6-player free-for-all deathmatch. Skirmish is a 3 versus 3 deathmatch where players can revive their allies, which is not the case in the other parts, because you're being revived automatically. And new modes have been added via expansions, and that includes also Elimination, which came together with House of Wolves, and then a similar mode to Skirmish, except it was divided into 9 rounds in which the team would have to kill all 3 of their opponents at once. Then there's Rift, that came together with the Taken King, and then it's a 6 versus 6 capture the flag-like mode, where players must deliver a spark to the opposing team's base, killing enemies in its radius. And then there's Supremacy, came together with Rise of Iron, a 6 versus 6 mode where players drop crests killed, and points are scored by picking up crests dropped by the enemy team. I have to say I've not played Supremacy or Spark frequently. I did play Control quite a few times, and that seemed the easiest one for me. And I don't really endorse death matches as such. I like playing games which are in a bigger open world with maps which are much wider. Apex, for instance, or Warzone are the kinds of games that I really enjoy playing within that environment with other people on board. With these death matches, I find that to be too fast and too full of quick eliminations, and also it's geared towards a very competitive type of spirit in gaming, and that is not what this channel or myself personally endorse. We run this in order to make new friends and run it as a very favorable, amicable, ethical community space for people to learn and to join forces, to have a lot of fun without really being bothered about scores, whether you're living or dying in such game. So anyway, for me in any case, PvP in Destiny is its weakest part, but that's just maybe my own personal interpretation, and I know that lots of people still like playing the Crucible. So some of the modes are also available occasionally during time limited periods, and that is Salvage, and then there is a 3 versus 3 King of the Hill game type, Combined Arms, where the Control and Clash modes are on maps with vehicles and turrets. Then you have Inferno, which came together with Dark Below. This is a modifier on multiple game modes where points are solely scored on kills and the player's radar is disabled. Then you have Doubles, came together with the Dark Below, which is a 2 versus 2 version of Skirmish. Then you have Mayhem, again, came together with the Taken King. a modifier on Clash and Rumble, where cooldown times for all abilities are greatly reduced. And we have Zone Control. Again, we're taking King, a modified version of Control, where points are only scored for maintaining control of zones and not by kills or point captures. So, a random mode is featured as the daily and weekly Crucible mode with extra rewards, so you get better loot. As of September 2015, players who do not own the Taken King or Rise of Iron expansions have access to 3 vs 3 and 6 vs 6 Crucible playlists on previous maps with assorted modes, and no longer will have to be accessing the playlists for individual modes. But if you have Destiny the Collection, you can just simply access everything, and that itself is most important and, you know, greatly rewarding. In Crucible modes, player statistics such as weapon power and defense are balanced between different players, and the periodic events Iron Banner and Trials of Osiris are offered, which disable balancing. So these events will have their own set of bounties, and they will be allowing players the chance to earn exclusive items, which is basically special. Iron Banner became available shortly after the launch of Destiny, and originally it was only used the control game mode, but with the release of Rise of Iron, and it rotated between Control, Clash, Rift, and then Supremacy. And it is also available during the last week of each month. Not sure whether it still is. I need to double check. That's the way it was. Trials of Osiris was added with the House of Wolves expansion, and it was using the elimination mode. And generally it was available every weekend from Friday until the week reset was completed on Tuesday. And then players who got undefeated in this mode gain access to an exclusive social space on Mercury called the Lighthouse. We have now the Trials of Osiris emerging, I should say, migrating to the sequel. So if you're interested, you can obviously go to the sequel and try it there. And I played some of the matches in there. Again, it's a competitive playground, and I always enjoyed it the best when played together with my community members. I forgot to mention, actually, it was not really written in this article, what I found the most enjoyable, if we were to be doing the Crucible, was creating a private match where all of us were known to each other, and that was absolutely hilarious. So that was thoroughly enjoyable. As you know each other, you are obviously looking for others in order for them to be eliminated, and you can do it in all sorts of ways. So I remember doing once such session, and Sakapupu, who knew full well of my internet speeds, was trying to eliminate me by the use of sniper, and he positioned himself really in an area which was fairly well concealed. But I had another weapon, and I had other means to which I could attack him and other opponents, and then the entire session turned into something which was absolutely hilarious. And it is in my archive, and if you're interested, you can just ping a message and I'll send you one of those sessions. We have very many of those very greatly treasured gaming moments on my YouTube channel, so anyone who is interested, you can just go there. It's about more than 1,000 streams archived there, which we had completed here on the channel over the years, and a lot of fun to be had. The only problem is that with some of the activities, the picture quality is not too good, and the reason for that is my former internet connection, which was very poor. But we were all doing it, you know, for the fun of it all, and we had a very, very good, very greatly bonding community spirit. So when we revisit these matches, I actually get still messages about our Warzone sessions. People want to find themselves doing certain things which were so memorable. They remember exactly what they did and how they completed an activity, or how somebody died and what went wrong. You know, it's just so funny. And ever since then, so that's like 6-7 years ago, the tech had significantly advanced, and on PlayStation today you can have the automatic recording of your sessions, which will keep the most precious moments with you forever. But you have to be double saving it and downloading it from your app, and yeah, never mind. It's all very easy, but a few years back this was next to impossible. Anyway, all of that is archived. If you're interested, just, you know, you can have a look there and basically clip whatever you like and extract whatever is enjoyable. And specifically, if you were a member of that team, or if you watched at the time, just, you know, have as much fun as possible. And then just to end this first part of our Destiny introduction, I can tell you that a week prior to the launch of the Rise of Iron expansion, the option to make private matches was added, and this option is available to all players on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I mean, today on PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, regardless if they purchased Rise of Iron or not. And private matches were allowing players to set up their own custom matches, just like what I described. Customization was allowing you to be including game mode, maps, score, and time limits, and enabling light level and time of day. So it's very customizable and can be very enjoyable if you're tailoring your activity to a particular group of community members, and you will know exactly how they play and what they want and what they do, and then you can have a lot of fun. So that is probably what makes the Crucible for me in Destiny 1 highly rewarding. All the other random selection PvP modes are not very enjoyable, but that one is definitely priceless. And I still enjoy doing it, and I think in the future, as I've been tying in my activities in Destiny with our charitable fundraising, once we reach certain goals, we are going to be doing some of these private matches, and we'll organize a tournament where our community members are all coming in at the previously agreed time in order to deliver that degree of entertainment. So that is definitely what we are going to be doing in here, private matches in the Crucible. So, players can also choose the number of players for the match, and that will be including beginning a match by themselves. Good customization. If you get a good crew fully on board, it is a lot of fun. Alright, so I think that probably will be all for the first section of this podcast. I will carry on with my descriptions of how Destiny, Bungie's masterpiece, was made, and I'll do so in the next podcast, which will be delivered tomorrow. So, get ready for that. A lot more information to be taken on board. And I think for anyone who's played Destiny for many years, they will be able to just literally rake up some of those precious moments of the gameplay. But for the newbies, I really think, a bit like what I experienced myself when I was entering the arena, there are just simply too many facts to be taken aboard. There's too many things to learn. And the best way of doing it is when it's recorded, you can just rewind and listen to it again, and move backwards and forwards and learn bit by bit. And instead of listening to me, or if you wish to really do that, not just by yourself, but with somebody else, you can join our community, and you can ask for others to come in and to give you a helping hand. And, you're going to be progressing a lot more rapidly forward than if you were just reading the article or listening to my podcast. Remember, Destiny is a game to be played together with a team, and you can get people through random searches, or you can build your own community on a Twitch channel or elsewhere. Many people build their communities on Reddit and on Twitter and on various other gaming forums. Discord is the forum that is attracting the greatest attention at the moment. So, there are different ways to which you can bring people in. But if you write about games, if you provide comments and views on what other people are doing on social networking, you will be getting responses. People will be responding to you if you don't want to be a streamer or somebody who does things live on air. And that is the way to build a community, and just make it as big as possible. Bring in as many people as you can, and make sure that when you do that, you are delivering the concept which is giving you the perspective of ethical gaming, where you are attentive, when you're kind, where you are paying attention to what other people are doing. You're not doing anything to others what you don't want them to do to you. So that's critical. And remember that and uphold that principle at all times. It's essential for anyone who wants to be a successful gamer. Right, so we've come to the end of this part 1. And we'll carry on with all the other interesting bits related to Destiny and Bungie, such as story. So there's a lot to read there. Then characters. Then plot, then all the other nice elements of Destiny, which we always cherish, and what will certainly be very interesting to many of our friends is how the game was actually developed, who was involved from the beginning, who was from the old Bungie team that worked on Halo, moved to the Destiny Task Force, who was brought in as new, And all of that we'll discuss in our next installment. Right, so before I end, I need to tell you that this podcast, together with my channel and everything else that we do here, is doing charitable fundraising. And this charitable fundraising is critical to all we do here live on Twitch and elsewhere on various platforms. Presently, I'm supporting a British-based charity, or British charity I should say, called Mind. So the Mind UK charity provides services for people who are experiencing any form of mental health difficulty. And that means from minor pressures to major illnesses, people who require counselling, practical support, or anything else. And the charity provides those services in our local communities through many of their branches and offices. Almost in every town and city of the country, there's somebody there who is able to help out. And just remember, if you were feeling under the weather and if you needed a helping hand, you want to have a friendly ear, how important it would be for you to be able to get it there and then. And this is what Mind do for people every single day. They rebuild lives, they save lives, they redirect people's lives, perhaps to new targets and the new objectives for people to feel that they're achieving, that they're worth something, that they are changing direction, that they're going to be proud of what they've done in the eyes of their family members. And they also can provide a lot of assistance with practical advice in terms of finance and housing and everything else. So I worked with various people who are based at Mind in the past, and I liaised with the charity for many different clinical reasons, and absolutely cherish their works and services and support them 100%. And I've done that for so many years in various circumstances and setups. But in this instance, I'm trying to raise the profile here within our Twitch community of gamers online. And I also would like to have as many donations as possible for us to be reaching the target, which is £500 at the moment, for people to contribute. And just remember, it doesn't have to be a huge, major, big donation. It could be as small or as great as you wish it to be. But every single penny will contribute towards a process in which lives are saved. And, you know, there can't be anything more noble than that when you're saving somebody's life. There can be nothing else which is more priceless. And you become an active participant. Just remember that. Just remember that. So, subscribe, support, donate, and therefore help our charities. I'll say it again. Subscribe, support, donate, and help our charities. All the information is available on my panels. The panels are on the About page. Click on the panel, get all the information to Tiltify, and you will be able to donate. Right. So thank you all very much for listening. Thank you for supporting my channel. Thank you for being our very valued community members. Thank you for being our dedicated Destiny veterans and everyone else who watched. Also, thank you to everyone who will be watching this video and listening to my comments and views through VOD or playback. Thank you all for your contributions, and I shall see you all tomorrow. I'll carry on with our Destiny Bungie Masterpiece description in my podcast, and tomorrow we are going to be doing a lot of Destiny gameplay live online. Pantheon has arrived. I'll try tomorrow morning, and then we'll crack on with some fierce activity, hopefully with some of our veterans. Zenith and Sekipupu are the first people to come to mind. Maybe Gale, maybe someone else, maybe Captain Jack. We'll see, and we want to be exploring all of those novelties that Bungie are giving to us prior to the release of the final shape. So on that note, I shall wish you all a very, very good night.